What up? What up? What up? What up, everybody? Yes, I'm your humble brother Crumb, the master student. Just want to give you a proper introduction to none other than the minister himself, the minister of information. We know him finally as M.O.I. I know you're waiting for him. Let's get him up here. Peace and love, minister, grand teacher. How are you?
Peace, everybody. Listen, so I'm doing something different today. I'm actually streaming live on my Facebook page, my chef Facebook page, um, because the conversation started a minute ago about Juneteenth. So I just wanted right out the gate say what's up to everybody on Facebook. I never went live on this Facebook page ever, so this is an exclusive. So thanks for having me up here.
Absolutely good, minister. Always good to have you. You know, a lot of times as of recently you've gone live and talked about um religion, rightly so. um God, these are all important aspects of our lives. However, comma, the family may have forgotten you are a master historian as well, and we're celebrating a holiday. This is now a federal holiday, the highest law in the land, Juneteenth. Minister, I wanted to really get your take on it. What's going on uh, as far as this celebration?
I mean, well, I tell you this, bro. It's not a knock to anybody to celebrate Juneteenth. Um, people have the right to celebrate whatever they want to celebrate, and I don't have anything against it at all. I think my post was saying, hey, um, while you're cooking out and indulging in alcohol and drinking and having fun, which is rightfully a celebration, right? Be sure to read what Juneteenth was about. That was my whole post. Was, hey, be sure to read what it was about. And by the way, I said, yeah, okay, so it's right there. I said, before you start to celebrate Juneteenth, please read the entire General Order Number 3, which I bet some people don't even know that is why there's a Juneteenth celebration. Now, what Juneteenth later became, we can get into that as well with the Black Republicans down in Texas. They made it more politicized and made it more commercialized to be a what's called a jubilee. General Order Number 3 sets up Juneteenth. I just said make sure you read it. Also understand that emancipate means transfer of property, not set free. So those are two things I wanted people to really understand. Or what I'm going to explain. Uh, what I'm gonna explain today, because a lot of people just don't understand, and it's okay. So I had some pushback. You can go to the comments real quick, and this is also streaming live from this page too. So if you're watching, go to the comments. Yeah.
So, someone says, "Man, they already got the grill going." You replied, shaking my head, "Just be celebrating any damn thing." um, but then, in all seriousness, then you start teaching and you share General Order Number 3. Shall I read it, or did you want to take the lead?
No, please go ahead.
Also, I wanted to ask. The family said I sound a little weird. How do I sound to you?
Yeah, it's a little robotic.
Okay. Um,
Sounds like a Decepticon.
okay. How do I sound now? Is it the
Oh,
same?
way better, way better, way better.
Okay. Cool. 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 Uh, you said for me to read, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. All right, so folks, here we have it. General Orders Number 3.
Hold on, brother. I'm gonna cut your wisdom. I want to set everybody up for this so they understand the document that they're looking at. This was a document carried forth to Galveston, Texas in 1866, which is a year after Lincoln gave what's called the Emancipation Proclamation. This is according to history. I'm not making this up. I'm just giving you the historical information. Lincoln does what's called a Emancipation Proclamation. Now, we've been taught in history that Emancipation Proclamation means that the slaves were set free in 1865. I'm explaining to people, upon my reading and understanding, that the ancestors should have been liberated, not emancipated. And I'll tell you why. And this is not semantics. This is called etymology, which is the origin of the word, what the word means, and how people use it. That's called the definition. That had anything to do with the origin of the word. So the etymology of emancipate means to transfer property. And when I saw emancipate means to transfer property, I said, oh yeah, because they were property. Remember, they tell you they were chattel slaves. They had rights to own people as property, and that's what the idea of slavery comes from. Now that's slavery. Our people were enslaved. There's a difference between slavery and being enslaved. Enslaved is a entire political construct. The society, how the society is structured. Remember, in school they taught us social studies. We didn't pay attention to social studies. Nobody did, or history, or liberal science maybe. But social studies was teaching you the societal norms of any society, group of people, community, neighborhoods, and the functionality of how they, as members of that society, have to contribute to the society to make the society function. Now, these groups who contribute also have a voice because they pay a membership or they pay taxes. So they have a voice in the community. They have rights to vote on certain things like legislation, which is the law, which affects the entire community, county, city, state, on how it functions. So I'm making these points to show you that these words become very important. And there's another word called manumission. Manumission was another word that they used. And manumission was when a owner of said person would set the person free based on some type of merit. It was called a meritorious manumission. So now you have meritorious manumission, you have the word emancipate, and I'm giving you the word liberate. See, liberation is when there's no system at all, when you're totally liberated. That's
Oh,
why the early settlers said, give me liberty or give me death. They didn't say, give me emancipation, give me death. They didn't tell Europe, because Europe had them under slavery first in the colonies.
correct.
Remember, the first migrant or immigrant workers were Europeans. In the early colonies, they had to come over here on a 7-year bid. Most of these folks were criminals. A lot of these criminals ran away down into a territory called Georgia, but we'll talk
Teach.
about that later, right? So this is history. So when I make a post about, hey, y'all may want to read General Order Number 3 and read the entire thing, because see, what you'll quickly realize, I'm gonna point out, it don't even become it starts as one thing, but as we think of us as a whole in the community, white, black, whatever your race, color, creed is, I'm going to show you how the entire system is set up against everybody, or what they call slavery. I'm going to show you why. Let's go to General Order Number 3 real quick and have you read that.
Yes, sir. I just want to read this real quick. You brought up something interesting. Now, I have heard you mention um, liberty versus emancipation. I never heard you bring up the manumission. I wanted to ask the listening audience: is this your first time hearing these three words connected? Manumission, meaning release from slavery, liberation versus emancipation. Very interesting. Let's continue. I'm sorry.
Um, Another famous person, real quick, that people know about is Prince Hall. Prince Hall was set free under what's called manumission. Prince Hall was brought to America by his master, William P. Hall. And William P. Hall, who was a European settler, um, in Boston, Massachusetts, gave Prince Hall his manumission paper, not freedom papers. Actually, papers saying that you're non-binding, you're not anybody's property, like you're your own man. But they had to quickly attain what was called 40 acres in the mule and have $1 in their pocket. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Go ahead.
General Order Number 3. The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute, oh, no, I think we lost the minister. It looked like he was in the woods. Okay, there we go. Let me switch this.
Yeah, continue, please.
Share screen. Do it right here. Okay, so here we go. The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with the executive, with
Oh,
a proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free.
okay, okay. Could you pull it up on the screen? I don't think we can see it.
Yep, it's on the screen.
Uh, okay, maybe it's not showing on my side.
I'm gonna pull up my phone just to see.
All we see is the banner.
Um, Give me just a second. Almost ready. No, yeah, it's showing. I pulled it up on my phone.
Okay. Well, I can't see it on my side.
Um,
Whoever can
I
see you. Um, so what I do is just tap out and come back in and see what happens.
okay, come on. All right, so family, there was a little bit of technical difficulty. The minister wanted you to see this general order. He himself couldn't see it though, so he's going to leave and come right back in. Just give him just a quick moment. Technical difficulties, you know how that can be sometimes. But let's continue on. Let's see what he says.
There we go.
All right. All right. So the people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free. Okay, you know what? European Jesus. That was just a joke. No, we are having some technical difficulty with the minister. Just bear with him just a moment, please, and thank you. Yep, there he goes. Here he is. Here he is. All right, minister, you there?
Yeah, the your share screen is not coming up on my side for some reason.
Okay. Um, you just went out 2 or 3 times. I think the connection may be have something to do with it, but nonetheless, I
I
I
shut
am
it off a couple times, come back in and see if it'll populate,
yes, sir.
and it's not populating on the screen. So
Okay.
I mean, nevertheless, I mean, as long as everybody can see it, then it's really cool. I don't have to see it. I already know it. Continue.
Yeah.
So listen, y'all. Just for the record, I cannot see what y'all are seeing at all. I'm gonna take a screenshot and I'll post a screenshot later. It's at 16:08 time mark. I cannot see what y'all are seeing at all. But
Okay.
because I know the information, I know it. I know exactly what's about to happen. So he just read the first part of it.
Right. The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with the proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free.
All right. So that right there talks about the Emancipation Proclamation. And we can stop reading the sentence right there and go ahead and get the watermelon and the grill fired up and get ready to have a jubilee. Because it's basically said, this is Juneteenth, Galveston, Texas. This is real history. This is what the fuck that was read. Excuse my language, but this is what was read out loud. Not to the slaves, to the slave masters, or to they're called planters. They own the cotton planters.
Mm.
You call them masters, okay? But the masters received a letter from a Galveston cavalry. I forget the general's name or the officer name who actually read it, but he was talking to the he has a weird last name, but he was talking to the slave owners, telling the slave owners that that part right there. The slave owners kind of probably gave him a look. I'm speculating because the next line, the next two sentences, explains the details of the conditions of said freedom that was given from the executive office, which was telling you that was Lincoln. But see, what you may not know, some of you may not know, Lincoln gave the um, proclamation, which is a public statement, doesn't carry any weight. It's not legal. It's not binding anywhere. It's just a public statement made by a government official. It's a proclamation. Lincoln made a proclamation to emancipate any slaves or people in bondage below what was called the Mason-Dixon. Now that slavery still existed in Maryland, Philadelphia, parts of the North, he didn't abolish that, or he didn't get rid of that slavery. He said only in the South.
Mm.
Why would Lincoln want to set free the slaves in the South? Why would they give you the story that Lincoln was the Moses of black folks in slavery? Lincoln could not even um, invoke any type of legal action because the South had seceded. The South was called the Confederacy, and that was called the Union. See, Lincoln was the president of the Union. He was not the president of the South.
Right.
The South had a whole other president. And matter of fact, the South had a whole Congress, of which a black man was in Congress as a Republican, right in 1865, 62. Can you believe that? Black folks were in Congress
Wow. In the South, yeah.
in the South.
Yeah.
And we'll cover that in a second. But read the next line. This is the general or the officer talking to the slave owners. Go ahead.
This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves. And the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor.
Stop right there. Now, wait, what you just read was him saying, listen, we're going to stop saying slave owner and master and slave. We're going to agree to now call it employees and hired labor. What? Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Y'all still got to work. Y'all ain't free from working.
Ooh.
See, the whole thing with slavery, people have to understand slave movies and everything, it was always about industry. It was the industry going on. It was the beginning of an industrial age for the South. And the South realized that they can generate a whole lot of income through distribution of goods and importation. Some of the major ports were in the South. The North had good ports too, like they got today with Boston and New York, the harbor, all those places. But the South had many more ports. And the first thing Lincoln did to disrupt the cotton industry in the South was he started what was called the blockades.
Mm.
And pull up the blockades. This is where we get into this is history, y'all. This is just regular history. Ain't nothing deep about it. So when people say, "Oh, we got to forget about that stuff and just move forward," what's happening now, or make a suggestion that we don't read our history, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Those are wise words. So you have to know a little bit about what's going on, right? And I don't know everything, but I'm pretty efficient in this and cooking as well. But Lincoln making the proclamation, that was the first part of it, but there was an agreement. Could you pull up, and again, I can't see you pulling this up, but could you pull up um, um, Lincoln gives white plantation owner reparations? See, we're talking about reparations. Reparations are already given with slavery. You see that? The blockade wars. I just told you about that. What
Yeah,
are blockade wars?
I think I hit mute by accident. But yeah, it says State Department history.state.gov blockade of Confederate ports 1861 to 65. The blockade, although somewhat porous, was an important economic policy that successfully prevented Confederate access to weapons that the industrialized North, so on and so forth. But let's move on to what you were saying. This
Yeah.
coming from New York Times opinion. When slave owners got reparations, Lincoln signed a bill in 1862 that paid up to 300 for every enslaved person freed.
Now wait right there. Hold on. This is 1862, family.
Mm.
Lincoln makes the announcement in 65. Galveston, Texas, Juneteenth plantation people got freed in 1866.
Wow.
So Lincoln started giving out reparations to the planters. You know, this is the bailout, like corporation. Listen,
Right.
this is all wise, right, and exact because those plantations work like manufacturers. They work like companies. It belonged to the company. these plantations, and these plantations got seed money because there were no banks established yet. They got seed money from European investors, British capitalists who saw an advantage to make a buck. So these plantations were corporations, they were companies. So Lincoln had to give out a bailout, no pun intended for a bale of hay, but he had to give a bailout to these plantation owners, some type of compensation.
Well, just to be historically sound, this was the second time it happened. The first time was when they ended slavery in Europe. At
Yeah,
that point in time,
yeah.
the plantation owners, the planters, as you call them, in the Caribbean got bailouts. And Kamala Harris' great grandfather was one of those men who was a slave owner who got reparations. But this is from the European side, not American. Continue. I'm sorry.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Now that's the only part I really wanted to show was Lincoln gave reparations out before the emancipation. Now, and I'm gonna let you continue reading it, but I want people to keep up with what's happening. They said the condition between master and slave, that is no longer the terms we're going to use. The new
Right.
words we're going to use is employer
And hired labor.
and hired labor. Employer and hired labor. That's what you are today. You have an employer and you are hired labor.
Correct.
So this is the deeper part of it. Then it says the connection between these existing, them becoming that between employer and hired labor, they're magically redoing the fucking words. Excuse my language again, but they're saying that's no longer the connection. We're going to disconnect slave and master, and we're going to connect the word employer and hired labor. Continue. Read the next part.
The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages.
Now we have to know three people got talked about in this paragraph. And if you don't know history, you would think it was all just one conversation happening. He was talking to the slave masters. He, he told the slave masters that this involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of your property. So before we go any further, we're just going to guarantee you're still going to have your rights, these white plantation owners, your personal rights, and your right to your slaves or property because they were declared property. How do we know that black folks were declared property? Abraham Lincoln could not give the Emancipation Proclamation from the seat of president. He had to go into commander mode. He had to go into the the chief of staff. Like he had to go into a whole nother seat of government in order to make that call. And Lincoln had to
Mm.
reclassify. He had to reclassify those chattel property Negroes as contrabands of war. And if he labeled them contrabands of war, each one that was captured or ran north for freedom at this point would be under what's called manumission. But if captured, they had to be returned back to the plantation in the South.
Ooh.
Lincoln did the same thing that was offered in the Revolutionary War. They were offered to be freed if they come and fought. Negroes flocked to the army to get free. Still do by population.
Teach.
They flocked to the army to get free because it was the promise. Now Lincoln making this statement about the Emancipation Proclamation did nothing for anything at all legally.
Right.
It was propagated. It was pushed forth as, again, Lincoln being the Moses of the ancestors, setting them free. Lincoln acted under what's called war power. And under war power, you go into what's called Department of Defense. This is Homeland Security. They got to reunite the country. The country's divided.
Right,
And
right.
if you do research on it, Lincoln really didn't care about freeing the slave. He said if he could have did it without freeing, he would have did it. That was his quote. Why is that important? Because again, this sets up Juneteenth. This sets up this letter is being read for your celebration, and the letter just told you that all we're doing is just switching the caps. It's 3 card Monty. It's going to shift this word over here to this word, but still the same condition. To seal
Ooh!
the deal shortly after 66, even before 66, things like vagrancy laws were enacted all the way up to 1971.
Right.
Vagrancy laws were enacted, and they enacted the Slave Fugitive Act. Because a couple of years prior to that, what's his name? He went to court.
Who's that?
Call his name. He went to court, and I'm gonna kick myself in the butt. He went to court, to Supreme Court for his
Y
freedoms.
Oh, Dred Scott.
Dred Scott,
Dred Scott.
and they reminded Dred Scott quickly that he was not even that ain't even happening because you're not even a person. This is law. This was a actual lawsuit that this and before him, Elizabeth Keys in the 1600s, she went to court for her freedom.
You
Like
said Elizabeth Keys?
Elizabeth Key, yeah, Elizabeth Key was one of the earlier court cases before they began to misnomer and mislabel people.
Mm.
This was the entire Reconstruction era, the Reconstruction of history.
Right.
This is
Uh,
right after this happened. Most African Americans became Democrat overnight. They were all Republicans the whole time. It was for the Constitution,
teach.
for which it stands. The demos system or democracy comes in with a groupthink idea.
Now, real quick, I wanted to go back to something you were talking about with Abraham Lincoln, if you don't mind.
Yes.
N- Did you notice how the Juneteenth flag looks a lot like the Haitian flag?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wanted to ask the listening audience because the minister said that Lincoln, and it's what prompted me to say this. Lincoln wasn't a fan. He wasn't trying to look out for the family or nothing like that. But I'm sorry. In addition to that, some proof, and I wanted to know if the family knew this. Did y'all know that Lincoln wanted to settle the newly freed so-called slaves in Haiti?
Wow.
Right. So now we're celebrating with this quasi Haitian flag.
Right.
1 foot in America type of deal. I'll just read this little quick burb and
Yeah,
I'll
but
pass.
that's the French flag also.
Hold on. French flag. Oh my God. I'm sorry. It is. It is also the French flag. Okay, I see it. I definitely see it. Uh, It
Stop
says,
passe.
ah, je ne pas, je ne pas say. I don't know. When Abraham Lincoln tried to resettle free blacks, because he tried to resettle the so-called free blacks into Africa, and that
Hmm.
didn't go well, as we already know. And he also tried to resettle them. At Abraham Lincoln sent former slaves to Haiti. A day before issuing the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln signed a contract to send hundreds, maybe thousands, of formerly enslaved people to Haiti. This is a day before he did that. Listen, I'm not gonna free you. I'm just gonna send you to Haiti. We're gonna send you to Africa. All right, you know what? Freedom, fine, whatever. No, I'm sorry, but that was all I had to add.
Okay. Okay. Um, Hold on. I was over here in the comments in the chat.
All right,
Um,
let's see what he got saying.
Epic Epic students. You see it? He's
Mhm.
chatting from YouTube.
Okay,
You see it?
yeah. Let me go back. He says Dred Scott plaintiff in error.
Yeah.
Uh, He
At the top,
says,
he said they're assuming so-called black people were the slaves. When they see that term, they automatically assume that means so-called black people. Epic, nobody's saying that. And he just kept coming, so he wants some attention. I'm gonna give him a little bit of attention.
"Uh-oh."
You know, when the special kids act up in the classroom,
Right,
everybody else is in the classroom behaving, listening. You got one acting up.
right.
Epic student wants to be the dunce.
Uh-oh.
We're gonna put a dunce hat on his head. They are assuming so-called black people were the slaves. We absolutely know. Myself and the good brother who's hosting Crom, we both know that the word slave is a Slavic term.
Come on.
We get it. We understand that the Europeans were the first slaves or indentured servants. We get that. If you were listening earlier, I said slavery and enslavement are different. So
Teach. You did?
that was you thinking that, Mr. Epic. We know
Woo!
about the red-legged Irish slaves of the Caribbeans.
Ooh!
See, what Epic may not know, class, is the Europeans were the first Slavic Slavs in the Americas. I said that earlier also, in the colonies. Remember? They had to
Yeah,
do a 7-year bid. They were criminals. I said that earlier, Epic. So we know that when we hear the word slave, we're not talking about a particular race of people. We're talking about the system at large. That's what we're talking about.
correct.
So we know that slaves are doesn't automatically mean black, Negro, colored folks, African American, etc. We understand that. And when they see that term, they automatically assume that means so-called black people. Again, there would be a bad assumption on your end because we understand that Negro, black, and color were all titles given to so-called Negroes in 1776 by slaveholders, and that lasted about 1865.
Teach.
But Mr. Epic, we also know that you have to claim your own nationality and worship under your own.
Vine and fig tree. Come on.
Come on now. This is what Prophet Noble Joeli taught us. So, Mr. Epic, you'll be misinformed to think that we didn't know what you were talking about. We overstand. We're trying to make a point about Juneteenth.
Woo!
I also told the audience earlier, Mr. Epic, that etymology is important. Did I not say that? Etymology is important.
Yeah.
And the word black is an adjective that was established in the 16th century. It's called Ojai German or Ojai French or O English, deriving from the word blanc, which really means white, which means pale. Again, going back to the pale skinned Slavs. Also, we're going all the way back to the origin of every word dealing with black and so called nigger,
Well,
because we know who the black niggers are now, and it's not
well,
us.
Minister, as I try my best to do, I want to keep you honest and fact check that because you said a lot right then. And, you know, I don't know, maybe Epic is gone. I have no idea. But I know a lot of people in the listening audience may have this may be their first time hearing anybody say anything of the sort. So I wanted to go back and just kind of confirm what you were saying. He said etymology was important, class, and we are all the ministers, disciples, respectfully, because this is a classroom setting where we actually learn, not just talk. But here we are, ministers, disciples. Etymology of black. The word black can be traced back to its Proto-Indo-European origins through the word block, which means or which meant pale, wan, colorless, or albino. That's all I want to say. Please, Minister, take the mic.
Right. So I just wanted to give Mr. Epic his special attention. We can move on.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Thank
Um,
you.
you're very welcome. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages, period. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness
Right.
either.
Oh, sorry. Either there or elsewhere.
Yes, sir.
These are the freedmen. Now, the freedmen were not the slaves. Thank you, Mr. Epic. See that assist you just gave me. Thank you. The freedmen were not the slaves. Did you know that? The society of freedmen were never enslaved. If you ever seen the movie 12 Years a Slave, I love that movie because that movie gives a perfect description of what a freedman was. The gentleman in the movie 12 Years a Slave was a freedman. He was born in New York free. He was never under slavery. His kids were not slaves. His wives were not slaves. They were never slaves. But at the beginning of the movie, a slave ran in the store while they were purchasing some things, and the white slave master came in. The guy was named Jasper. And the movie gave you a frozen period in time to show you it was a distinct difference between freedmen and enslaved people. Now, the enslaved people were mostly vagabonds and debtors anyway. It wouldn't, in the beginning, it didn't matter color or race because both black folks and white folks were enslaved in America. This is 1841. Freed,
Right.
freed.
Uh, I was trying to find that particular scene. I was hoping that it would be in the trailer. I believe I have the wrong trailer. Uh, I seen that one that you're referring to, and it was rather sad. This, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I was hoping I could find that while you were on the topic, because
Uh,
Jasper looks to be in a very poor condition. Um, I heard the minister speak about Jasper several times, and then I finally saw Jasper. I'm like, "Dag, Jasper." Um, but yeah, definitely got to go see that movie to get a better understanding
do me a
of.
favor, do me a favor, do me a favor, real quick.
Yep.
Go back on that same trailer. Go back just a little bit because there's something important you just went by.
Okay.
Matter of fact, hold on, about right there.
Well, I think I can just play it. Well, actually, I probably can't. I got to download it. Was it this one or keep going?
Pause it. Now, as I said yesterday when we was talking, these people out in the field right here are at work. They're not slaves. They're enslaved. Now, this is the difference between slavery and enslaved. These folks were enslaved. While they were enslaved, what made them enslaved, they could not move anywhere laterally or horizontal in this society at this time. They were deadlocked into being laborers. They couldn't start their own businesses. They weren't now allowed to read or understand how to even apply for a business license. They wanted to start a fucking business for themselves. Excuse my language again, but this was about labor. Had they had an HR or EO office, this would have been over with a long time ago. But they didn't have one of those conditions. So the conditions they were forced to work under were just laborers, general laborers, unskilled laborers who could be sold off to other plantations, to other factories, other planters. Then society said that's illegal. We can't do that anymore. That's kind of wrong. This is the 13th and 14th Amendment. They had to make an amendment to the original way of doing things. Originally, slavery was okay. Remember, they had to make an amendment. That means they had to do an adaptation to a documentation that was already in play. They could have just dissolved the whole Constitution, started over from scratch, and say, "Hey, it's all wrong. Just stop it." But they didn't. They suffer from what's called cognitive dissonance.
Mm,
And in cognitive dissonance, here's how we know this. It said that slavery nor involuntary servitude, those are two conditions. Remember, enslaved and slavery, different. They said nor slavery or nor involuntary servitude. Those are two conditions you can go into the society. Neither one of those, no more, unless you are convicted of a felon. Then you're back in those conditions of what? Indentured and what? Slavery.
right.
If you look up, and you don't have to, the people in this society in America that are disproportionately incarcerated and given felons to look like you and I are brown. That's the societal function I told you about earlier, the social studies of the society. They're just maneuvering the society to work against people, and it's wrong. Classism, racism, all of it. It's wrong. It's bigotry, and it's wrong. Just a few years ago, 40, 50 years ago, 70s, late 60s, they had to make banks, had to force them to stop putting black people in bad parts of the community on purpose. It's called redlining. There's so many
Yeah.
conditions that were sought up constructually even after slavery. So we celebrate Juneteenth. I asked a question 3 years ago, I think. What are we celebrating? And I asked that question now, like, what are you celebrating? What is the Jubilee about? Because you just read the letter and they told the freedmen to remain in their houses and continue to work. Be quiet, first of all. They told the freedmen, because the freedmen were the free Negroes who always been here. All, what? How many was it? 12 to 24 black millionaires during the era of slavery, 1800s, and like Mr. Weeksville, who bought the whole Bedford Stuyvesant. That's what it is now, Bedford Stuyvesant in New York. That was Weeksville. One black man owned that whole territory. And it was all black people. This is in the 1860s, before Tulsa, Oklahoma. Those were all the freedmen. So they teach history in a way that makes you think that all people of color were under these conditions of slavery. In Louisiana, more black plantation owners owned slaves than white plantation owners. Your first black plantation owner sets up the condition to own a person for life as a black man. Anthony.
Uh, Anthony was the slaveholder, or Anthony was the slave?
He was the slaveholder.
Anthony Johnson, slaveholder. Let me just make this bigger. The first person to legally own a slave in colonies of America, which is, let me just look up images. This was a black guy. So this is your first slave master, the first.
That's
When we say,
you see that?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
When we talk about slave masters, I know we infamously or stereotypically think about Europeans, but here is slave master himself.
And it's a lot
First,
of them. It was a lot of them. Continue though. It's a lot of them.
this is coming from some place, I don't know, but it says, yeah, first slave owner in the colonies, Anthony Johnson. So this is the first slave owner.
Okay, scroll up a little bit because I'm gonna show y'all what time era this was. Scroll up a little bit in that paragraph below his picture.
Oh, the paragraph. Okay.
There's something below.
17th century.
17th century, family. That's the 1600s. For those of
Yeah.
y'all don't know, that's not the 1700s. I know you see 17, but it's the 1600s.
Right.
As in 1619, settlers. This brother was in that era owning slaves, and he owned both white and black slaves. And a white slave ran away from him and got returned. He went to court and owned that white man for life. This is him, and this is the history. I'm hoping we go back and do more reading, because don't take my word for it. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'll persuade anybody. I'm just asking y'all to take a deeper look, or don't. Either way, you're right. But this is important.
Mm.
It's important information to understand, because as they show us Django and they show us 12 Years a Slave in the new Will Smith movie, Emancipated. How ironic is that?
Ooh, oh yeah, he Will Smith did do a movie,
Emanci-
Emancipation. Will Smith.
yeah, and they always show you in these movies us in the worst clothes. These burlap sack shirts from like the medieval time frame. They make us look like crazy people in these movies, and chains are around our neck.
Facts.
Every movie they do that. And psychologically, here's what happened. And I told a brother earlier, the word psychonegrosis. This sets up psychonegrosis and epigenetics, which are both conditions that most people of trauma dissension suffer from. And psychonegrosis is a mental condition that has warped the minds of so-called African Americans and Americans. It's a mental condition. It was coined in the 1960s.
Yep, I found it. Psychonegrosis.
Yeah, it looked like necrosis, which is we're not dealing with necromancy or
Right, right, right. A, me-
mortus.
a mental disorder affecting the spirit, personality, motives, and actions of Negroes who have failed to rid themselves of whatever.
No, the next part is important.
Uh-oh. Okay. Let's see.
Who
Let
have
me
failed to rid themselves of what?
uh
Of their collective. I got to damn near memorize. It's crazy.
rid themselves of the psychological ills they've occurred from their collective experience with foreigners. Wow, that's powerful.
Causing them to do what?
Marked
But
by, I'm sorry, please.
now, this sets up what it is. That's going to give you the conditions. Go ahead.
Okay. Marked by a distorted ideal of self and others, psychonegrosis results in unnatural patterns of perception, logic, thought, speech, behavior, and emotional expression, and is accompanied by various other unnatural uh, dispositive manifestations such as, but not limited to, self group deprecation, the championing of black ideas, conversion to non black religions, xenophilia, especially Anglo-centric xenophilia, cognitive dissonance,
Mm-mm.
sexual deviation.
Mm-mm. Wait a minute. You start right there. You can stop right there. And
Mm,
we ain't got to say what the last word just said. We know what's going on in our community.
right. Yeah. True.
Those who get it, get it. So these are all the conditions of psychonegrosis that would cause us to want to celebrate or jubilee at the idea of a thought of something happening, which is fictitious. Liberation should be the thing, not emancipate.
Teach.
Total liberations. Even in the articles, or I'm sorry, the amendments, the 13th and the 14th Amendment, giving you your voter's right and also locking you back up into slavery on the illusion of freedom, it said that slavery and involuntary servitude is no longer the case. But if you mess up in our society, you're back a slave, buddy. Agreed? All right, let's play ball. And they
13th
kept it
Amendment.
moving. Right. And they kept it moving, remember?
Yeah.
Voters' rights. Voters' right. They make y'all think that Negroes just got the right to vote with that. We were running the whole entire republic of the Confederacy. Black Republic.
Mm.
There it is. Nor slavery, nor involuntary servitude, except
Except.
under one condition. To be your parents talking to your kids. You can go outside, but listen, if you not back on this porch, there's a condition behind it.
Come on.
And the condition says, except punishment for a crime, wherefore the party shall be duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. That's the British Islands, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, that stuff. Slavery should just been abolished, y'all. The 13th Amendment should have just said slavery ain't right and we ain't gonna do it at all.
Ooh.
Slavery ain't right and we ain't gonna do it at all. But see, in 1866, I just showed you, General Order Number 3 said the word slavery and slave master are going to be now replaced by what? Employer and hired labor.
Right. All facts.
So they change it. They once again come back with the language, which is lexicon, understanding how language works, parts of speech.
Well, it isn't respectfully, isn't that what God did when he got mad at the people? He went down and, this is the same God, and I'm not trying to go there, but this is the same God who said, I'm not the God of confusion. And now he said that after he went and confound the language to cause confusion. The language is
Uh,
just tricky.
Yeah,
Very tricky.
it is. So again, this is the art general article number 3 that sets up Juneteenth celebration. Now, what I'll wrap up with is this right here, because there's a lot of information I'm talking about. But what I wrap up with is the freedmen of Galveston, Texas, thereafter in 1866, began to politically strategize to get the newly freed Negroes to come along on board to vote with them and the Republican Party.
Right. Mm.
But then states and counties begin to put in legislation in place saying, they got to know how to read first. Kind of how they did 2-3 years ago here. Remember,
Right.
um, they begin to put up stuff like they got to know how to read. Um,
All
they got to be
right.
free. They got to be free. And you see these cartoon depictions on Google of these black folks standing in line to vote, and the white people got their guns and intimidate them. These are the real Democrats. The
Um,
demo system. Go ahead.
I know you said you were going to close out. I just want to throw this out there before you got away from us. Another thing you put in your post, I wanted to see if you could speak to, was this screenshot. It says, though the proclamation's initial impact was limited, the order was true to the etymology of emancipation, which comes from a Latin word combining the prefix e, meaning away, and uh man,
Emancipare.
I'm sorry,
Emancipare.
mancipare, meaning to transfer ownership of. Why is that important, brother?
Because the letter that was read at Galveston, Texas, that gave the Jubilee of Juneteenth was based off a word called Emancipation Proclamation that Lincoln supposedly gave to the people, of which he had no authority over the Confederacy anyway, so it didn't even count. It's just like Vladimir Putin yelling over here that something's free over here, and we like, and then Biden like, I wish I would. We don't run into, so that's about as much effect Lincoln had on his speech to the South. If anything, what really affected the South was again war power when Lincoln began to blockade the ports and burn down the plantations.
mm,
But this was all set up during the War 1812. See, the history of America is pretty interesting because it's always told from the eyes of the conqueror.
right.
So it's pretty interesting stuff. Um, I just wanted to make that stand on Juneteenth. Celebrate life every day. We don't have to wait to a festive holy day or holiday to celebrate life, surviving, being who we are, everlasting. We've made it through some tough eras throughout the time of man. So just celebrate life and where we are as a people. Everybody, love. Got to learn to love instead of hate, especially in these conditions. And in a little while, we're gonna be all we got as a people.
Um, I wanted to just say, because you've given this measure several times, in terms of emancipate, it was transfer from slave to employee, which was just another type of slavery. I've heard the minister say that several times. But nonetheless, minister, if the family wants to support, can you throw your cash app out there, please?
Oh, the cash app, cash app. Yeah, but again, thanks for everybody tapping in, man. I definitely appreciate it. Like I said, I usually can go live on my Facebook page, but I did. So, did it come up?
Yeah, I'm fixing it right now. Um, family, there has been a little bit of a change. This is the, oh, I did it wrong. This is the Cash App name right here. Check this out, please, and thank you. It is Chef Jacoby Ponder. That's money sign Chef Jacoby Ponder. So within your festivities, because this is about what you know and what you don't know. Do we want to be distracted? Do we want to know what's going on? Be the butt of these people's jokes? Of course not. We want to know what's going on and where we're going within that jubilee. So throw
Oh,
something into the plate, please.
listen. One last thing while you were saying that. You made a great point. Do people choose to be blind to the truth? Are people unwilling to see the truth? The people who are like truth is almost new hate speech. Truth
Woo!
is hate speech. And all celebrities, I think, talk the way I talk. Shouts out to B.O.B., Andre 3000, Killer Mike, CeeLo, Goody Mob, Wu Tang. Shouts out to all the free thinkers, man, of society. I'm just a free thinker. That's it. I'm not special. But let's go to a passage real quick in the scriptures that talks about society and people being blind and who's in control of keeping them blind. Um, what is the passage?
Second
Oh, the
Corinthians
passage.
4:4.
I think it is.
Um, I'm gonna go to King James version. Sorry about that, family. Um, okay, yeah. So no, this is still not giving me what I want.
No. Put in it should where it says Satan, who is the god of this world. Then start with that. This is in the scriptures, y'all.
Okay, here we go. Oh, it was the NLT. My apologies. So this is Second Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, and it reads, Satan, who is the God of this world, whoa,
Keep going.
has blinded the minds of those who do not believe. They
Mm-hmm.
are unable to see the glorious light of the good news. They
That's
don't
keep going. I'm sorry.
they don't understand this message about the glory of Christ, who is the exact likeness of God.
They don't want to hear the honest to God truth.
Woo! Teach.
That's scriptures telling y'all the people who are blinded to the truth. They'll fight you on the truth. When I made that post, I had 2 or 3 people fighting me just on if you're not from Texas, don't celebrate it. Like, no, just don't celebrate it at all. Or just at least know what you're celebrating. Do what you want to do. You're grown.
Right.
But like at least just know about it. Then you had a brother slide on there talking about you need kindly let the past go. Like, man, y'all are ops, man. Y'all crazy. But so many people on that post rock with me in the spirit of truth. They don't even know me. That like truth never fade, no pass away. Truth is truth. I can tell the same story 5 years from now. It'd be the same story because it's the truth
Mm.
about what happened and what's going on. So I just wanted to let people understand that even scripturally, for those who believe in the scriptures, believe in God, the word just said, who keeping y'all blind to the truth?
Damn.
Continue to follow it being because then Jesus says, what about the world of Satan? Be in it, but not of it.
Ooh, amen.
All right. The doors of the church open.
So if y'all want to pass the plate around, put something in the collection plate. Amen to that. So tap all the way in. But family, listen, you don't necessarily have to put something in the collection plate. You can always go and give him a Grammy. What does that mean? That means hitting the follow button on the Instagram page, which is Minister Informing on Instagram. That's Minister Informing. You can always give him a Grammy. That's free and it's always appreciated as well. Always, family, you can always hit that subscribe button. He is on YouTube under the channel name the Minister parentheses M.O.I. But if you look up the Minister, 2 words, the Minister, you'll find his channel or Minister Informing. It's really easy to find. I'm sorry, Minister of Information. It's really easy to find. Last but not least,
Um, let's Mr. Epic Studies. Let's invite Mr. Epic Studies up over to Crumb TV to have a conversation because he's just adamant about shouting to the world what he know.
Okay, you want to just kind of I okay, listen, Mr. Epic, if you could here, let me put this out there.
The
Where
email,
is it at right now? Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. Where is the MOI email at? Because
or he
right
can
here.
there you go. Yeah.
Either
Um,
or.
Epic,
Crump, please, I'm
there's
sorry.
the email, buddy. Shoot me a quick email, man. Let's link and set up some time to hop on the platform and have a conversation. Because I would absolutely love to know what you know. Like I'm a master student. I think everybody over here, Mr. Epic, are master students. So you're probably not getting the response you want in the comments. But I'm gonna offer you opportunity to shoot me an email and let's set up a live on Crumb TV. Why not?
Yeah,
Why
absolutely.
not? Also, real quick, if you guys are following Killer Priest this Wednesday, Crumb TV in the building this Wednesday, right?
Yes, sir.
Be sure to check it out and tap in.
I,
Appreciate
I
it.
it may not be me. It may just be MOY and Judge Joe Brown. So MOY, Judge Joe Brown, Killer Priest is going to be a hell of a panel lineup. Super dope. MOY podcast at gmail.com. That's for any and everybody, family. You want to ask a question, you want to keep him honest, you want to add value, you whatever it is you want to do, you can get in contact with him there. Minister, last words and let's close out, please.
But all I say is, fam, once again, man, be sure to do your research. Be sure to do your research. Uh, look things up. Study. Study some more.